Welcome back. We're off to a hot and heavy start. We're going to continue that. In continuing what we just talked about, too, Ben Roethlisberger was asked about continuity and his preferences to keep change to a minimal amount. So that's how he feels. A lot of people agree with that. Will, let me ask you about this now. If they keep things relatively the same, then what do they have to do from a personnel point of view, too? Because you look at their drafting, their last 6 #1 picks have all been defense, and they don't have all that much to show for it with regard to playmakers on defense.
Well, I mean, I don't know. TJ Watt's pretty good.
I understand that, but there have been a number of guys who are expected, like Artie Burns, like Jarvis Jones, like others who haven't done that. And I think for #1, you would expect more than that, right?
I think Terrell Edmonds had a pretty good season, too. Did they miss on some guys? I mean, yes, they have missed on some guys in terms of being impact players, but look, I think John Bostic had an okay year replacing Shazier. I think that they tried to experiment. I don't think that went very well defensively. I think much longer are you going to have Joe Haden? I think you got to go find it. I think you got to keep building on defense. I mean, offensively, your skill guys are still pretty young. There is some concern about the offensive line, especially with like guys that are getting in their late 20s. I mean, Ben said today, I'm going to come back if Pounce is coming back. Well, Pounce is, he's going to be in the league. That's next year's year 9 for him, year 10. I think that those guys, he's getting a little bit older. DeCastro's getting a little bit older. So I think you could bring in alignment, but I would continue to stick with the defense because I still think that's where the holes are on this team.
Well, yeah, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger wants nothing but continuity between this year and next year because he doesn't want to change the coordinator this time. I mean, that's the big part of this. A, and then B, he's endorsing keeping his guys, the offensive line, but I wouldn't be surprised if they make a move at right tackle and at left guard because they can. If they are going to, the rest of the panel disagrees with me on this, but as far as if they're going to keep the coaching staff in place, I think they should make changes there, but if they're not going to make changes there, they have cap room to play with. So because of the Le'Veon Bell situation. Right. So you can make changes on the roster, and for a change with the Steelers, you can make changes with additions because of the cap space as opposed to trying to make cosmetic changes with a few minuses here and there.
I don't know if they're going to have a ton of cap space. You got to give the quarterback anywhere between $60 to $90 million. You would imagine that Joe Haden gets a contract extension in his final year when they like to do that too. So I'm not quite sure how much money they have. I think where the big get could be is drafted 19th overall. If you look at last year, you're looking at guys like Van Der Esch and Rashaan Evans going in that spot right around there. So you can definitely shore up the inside linebacker in that position. I mean, obviously they need defensive help. I mean, they need cornerback help. They need inside linebacker help as well. And as for the initial question, Pomp, of course, Benzie's right on that one. Ben threw for 5,000 yards. You think he wants anything to be changed on that offense?
But I think if you're a Steeler fan and you're looking for any sort of hint of change, if Keith Butler doesn't come back next year, I mean, Mike Tomlin has continued to have a larger and larger role in calling that defense, and this is basically putting it in Mike's lap, saying this is your baby. And I think if you want to look at if we enter 2019 as Mike might officially be on the hot seat for the first time, I think that would be sort of one of the dominoes that would have to fall if Keith doesn't return and they say, hey, you know what, Mike, this is your unit, you're a defensive guy, that's your background, go get a guy and make some changes. And if that doesn't work, then I could say Mike would definitely, obviously, in my opinion, be in trouble.
Tim, let me ask you this. How much is the miscalculation of the Le'Veon Bell situation, how much did that hurt them? Not just from that point of view, but for the money they didn't spend because they couldn't.
That's the biggest part of it, the last part of what you said. I think that James Conner made up for that pretty well for the first half of the season, roughly half of the season. Jaylen Samuels spotted in here and there towards the end as well. So I do think it hurt them in terms of not just the cap dollars that they didn't spend, which, like you point out, Bob, is probably the biggest reason, but also I think in games where they got too loose in throwing too much as opposed to running, they would not have gotten away from Le'Veon Bell in the same manner in which they were willing to get away from James Conner and Jaylen Samuels, especially in the red zone.
I don't think that the loss of Bell really hurt them because what you said about Conner. I think where the Steelers had the big miscalculation was how good Stevan Ridley was or how good Fitz Toussaint was, knowing that if Le'Veon did not come in, there was going to be James Conner, who has been injury prone. He's been injured the past 3 years. Going back to college. So to have a better running back behind Conner, I think that's where they erred the most. And if Bell would have came back at November 19th, the Steelers are probably in the playoffs right now because they probably don't lose one of those 3 games or 2 games that Conner was out. But I mean, you can't force a guy to come in here. I don't think you can blame him too much because they weren't quite sure that they didn't think he was going to sit out this whole season.
Right, exactly.
No
I think characterizing it as a miscalculation is not necessarily fair to the team because this is the first time a player has ever done this.
How about just absence?
Like I don't think nobody expected him to not show up, including the other 52 guys in the room. So to me, that was the weirdest day of the year, and sort of the day that sort of set the tone for the rest of the season was that first day of week 1 where he didn't show up and the lineman went off. And the vibe was weird. They got it together for 6 weeks, and then it was weird again at the end. I mean, I think this was just, I did a poll after the Saints game last week, and people blamed Le'Veon and all, and most people said no. And I think you can point to James and what they did on a budget to kind of offset his absence. But I still think like that was just a weird thing.
Yep,
it was just a weird thing. They never really kind of got it. Never really got it together. They had one great game. They drilled the Panthers, and guess what? The Panthers turned out to suck.
And they ended up killing the Panthers season.
The Falcons also sucked.
All right,
they suck too.
We got to continue this, and we will. More Steelers stuff next. But right now it's time to go around the horn for this week's Smooth Moves, brought to you by Pittsburgh's largest supplier of the smoothest granite, marble, and quartz countertops. That's Armina Stone. So, Will Graves, you're first. Your Smooth Move of the week.
Shout out. Look, I think Tua Tagovailoa, however you say it, I think he got screwed out of the Heisman because he didn't have to play the fourth quarter, and he had one bad game on a bum leg against a really good team. Good for him for throwing, 4 touchdowns with 3 incompletions and showing up Kyler Murray a little bit. Good for Tua.
Well, I go with Matt McRae. We're talking about a guy who's on the 18th hole in some desert Texas golf course on Wednesday, and he's kicking 3 field goals and including a game winner, even though it wasn't very pretty. So, I mean, that's probably as much as you can ask for a guy that you literally pulled off the street 3 days and threw him into a pretty pressure-packed situation.
Well, I should give it to Will for just trying to say Tua's full name without just saying Tua, like anybody in the media who is outside of the state of Alabama tries to do. So good job from Will there. I'm going to split it actually, since I'm a renowned honk for both Pitt and Penn State. Everybody knows this. I'm a big Pitt and Penn State guy. I will give 1/2 to Saquon Barkley for setting the record for receptions by a rookie running back, as well as going over 2,000 yards from scrimmage, just the third guy to do that as a rookie. And Larry Fitzgerald for his one-handed touchdown catch, as well as getting 1,300 receptions, just the third guy in the NFL to do that as well. So kudos to those guys from the two of the favorite local programs.
And those are the Smooth Moves of the week, brought to you by Armina Stone, featuring Pittsburgh's largest indoor stone gallery. They got granite, they got marble, they got everything imported from all over the world to give you the smoothest countertops in the area. Score a touchdown with new granite countertops from Armina Stone. What's 2019 in the AFC North going to look like? That's next.